Mosasaurus hoffmanni, a giant whose appearance instills real terror. It was a distant relative of monitor lizards that decided the seas would be a better environment for them, and they were right. This species of Mosasaurus is the type species of its genus and belongs to the subfamily Mosasaurinae, within the Mosasauridae family. Among the dozens of other mosasaurs, it stood out for its monstrous size and incredibly powerful build. This species was literally the pinnacle of evolution within its family, a perfectly balanced predator. This marine monster reached colossal proportions. One lower jawbone found in the Penza region of Russia was 5.5 feet long. There have been other jaw fragments that indicate lengths of up to 6.5 feet long. Estimates of the total length of Mosasaurus vary, averaging between 50 and 56 feet. Some researchers suggest it could have been 43 feet long, while others theorize lengths exceeding 56 feet. In any case, this mosasaur was the largest marine predator of its time and could have been larger than any other marine predator of the Cretaceous period. The weight of M. hoffmanni might range from 33,000 to 60,000 pounds. If we go by the maximum size and weight estimates, we're looking at the largest carnivorous marine reptile among hyperpredators. Compared to the great white shark, this monster was 4 times greater in length and more than 20 times heavier. The reptile's skull stood out among other mosasaurs for its sheer might. Unlike the jaws of Tylosaurus, which were extremely flexible and mobile, the jaws of this giant were less functional and likely sawed through the flesh with back and forth movements. Its deep-rooted teeth aided this process. The crowns were powerful, slightly flattened on the sides with sharp cutting edges used for crushing and slicing flesh. Still, with jaws as long as the average human height, this animal could not only saw through its prey, but also swallow enormous chunks or even consume it whole. Unlike some predators with an excellent sense of smell, such as the hammerhead shark, which can detect a few drops of blood from miles away, this underwater giant relied on its eyesight for hunting. Its large eye sockets allowed it to capture more light, resulting in far-reaching vision. However, its binocular vision was weak, only covering an angle of about 29 degrees. This predator couldn't accurately estimate the distance to its prey, but it didn't really need to. As for the lack of a strong sense of smell, there's a theory that the reason for this was its absolute dominance as a hyperpredator. Its status allowed Mosasaurus hoffmanni to feed on fresh prey and avoid scavenging, which it would have needed a strong sense of smell for. Why sniff out wounded or dead prey when evolution has given this giant everything it needed to become the best underwater predator? Its main objective was to spot the prey. It was a done deal. With a long, streamlined body, functional flippers, and a well-developed shark-like fin at the end of its tail, it was able to reach high speeds and maneuver pretty well, perhaps as effectively as its relative, the Tylosaurus. M. hoffmanni was an active apex predator. Its prey included the largest marine creatures, from giant fish, including sharks, to enormous turtles, and even its own kind. Like Tylosaurus, the Mosasaurus often engaged in deadly battles with each other, with the victor cannibalizing the loser. It's believed that this predator could also ambush its prey in deep water and was capable of long pursuits. Its endurance was top-notch, and its speed was decent too. The mosasaur swam actively using its tail. It was a warm-blooded animal with a high metabolism, meaning it was always active. Additionally, this predator could drown other marine reptiles, waiting for them to surface for air. It could also dive to considerable depths in pursuit of its prey. This monster was truly ambitious, attacking any water-dwelling creature, regardless of its size, even the largest turtle to have ever existed on Earth. It weighed no less than a modern car, 4,800 pounds, and measured 15 feet in length. Known as Archelon, this creature belonged to the extinct family Protostegidae of the Cretaceous period, closely related to modern leatherback turtles. A true giant of its kind, the span of its flippers reached 16.5 feet. When moving on land, it left tracks as big as those of a bulldozer. Its large, sturdy skull reached up to 2.2 feet in length, and it had a huge, hooked beak, similar to a bird of prey, which allowed it to easily crack mollusk shells. Its impressive size made this turtle extremely difficult to prey on. For a predator to grab it by its shell was an unrealistic task, especially since the shell was incredibly tough. If the Tylosaurus, who often used a ramming tactic, had attacked the Archelon's shell, it likely would have failed. But despite having formidable defense in the form of its shell and enormous size, Archelon still fell prey to Mosasaurus hoffmanni on occasion. When it came to that underwater monster, no amount of protection or strategy could help a living creature that crossed its path. This is evidenced by fossilized remains of giant turtles showing injuries sustained in their lifetime, often missing one or multiple flippers. Paleontologists believe that these wounds may have been inflicted when Archelon encountered large mosasaurs, such as M. hoffmanni. This sea monster truly ruled the ancient ocean, a predator unmatched in size or strength. However, it's worth noting that there was one criterion which did lose out to another monster of the Western Interior Seaway, bite force. That title belonged to a predator that not only hunted in the water, but also on land. The largest crocodile in history. Deinosuchus. It inhabited the shores along most of the outer boundaries of the Western Interior Seaway. It was the second largest predator of its kind, after the mosasaurs that lived in these waters. Its appearance was remarkably similar to today's crocodiles and alligators. Evolution seemingly decided that it had already created the perfect predator and left it alone for the next tens of millions of years. Deinosuchus lived on both sides of the Western Interior Seaway, forming two populations, Western and Eastern. It was likely that it thrived in both freshwater and seawater environments. Some paleontologists consider these two populations to be one species. Others divide them into two, Deinosuchus rucosus, which lived on the western coast, and Deinosuchus riograndensis on the eastern coast. The size of the croc alligators was truly striking. The eastern Deinosuchus averaged around 29 feet in length and weighed just over 4,400 pounds. That's more than any of today's largest crocodiles. And if those numbers don't seem impressive enough, their western counterparts, Deinosuchus rugosus, reached up to 40 feet in length and weighed over 17,600 pounds. For reference, the largest living crocodile today is about 17 feet long and weighs 2,400 pounds, making Deinosuchus 2.5 times greater in length and over 7 times heavier. A true giant that hunted both herbivorous and carnivorous dinosaurs of its time. Covered in 4 rows of extraordinarily strong, abnormally large, bony osteoderms that resembled armor, Deinosuchus could engage in confrontations with other large, dangerous predators and come out unscathed. It was extremely difficult to pierce through these osteoderms. The snout resembled that of a modern-day Mississippi alligator or Cuban crocodiles, wide and lined with massive, thick teeth. Deeper within their mouth, their teeth were blunt and short, perfect for crushing and breaking down dinosaur bones, which they did. Their powerful legs were strong enough to lift their massive bodies, allowing Deinosuchus to feel quite comfortable on land. However, this beast's deadliest weapon was its incredibly powerful jaws. Large specimens could bite with 10 times more force than a Tyrannosaurus. And let's not forget that the Tyrannosaurus had the strongest jaws among the dinosaurs. Some studies estimate the bite size of the Deinosuchus to be 100,000 newtons, which is the equivalent to 22,000 pounds of pressure. This much force could easily crush a car or a boulder. This immense bite force, combined with incredibly strong teeth, suggests that this monster's signature move was to crush its prey to death rather than tear it apart. Nothing could survive the bite of a Deinosuchus. It hunted dinosaurs, large fish, and turtles whose shells posed no issues for its jaws, although Archelon was still too large for it to handle on account of its size. Eastern Deinosuchus, due to their more modest size, couldn't take down large dinosaurs and focused more on fish, turtles, and medium-sized coastal prey, while their Western partners in prehistoric business preferred larger game. The larger specimens would grab large dinosaurs and crush them without fear of injury. Their size, weight, fury, and bite force enabled them to do this. But the wildest part of this gruesome scenario was that Deinosuchus would not hesitate to attack and devour large tyrannosaurids like Daspletosaurus and Gorgosaurus, the top predators among dinosaurs at the time. For example, Gorgosaurus could measure between 26 and 30 feet long, so one can only imagine the epic fights along the shores of the Western Interior Seaway when these two predators met. Dominating the coasts and coastal zones, Deinosuchus instilled terror in every living thing that came within its reach, although they only occasionally ventured into deeper waters. In the depths, the apex predator niche was filled by other giants, such as mosasaurs. But what about the most common predators that lived in the waters of the Western Interior Seaway? If you are unlucky enough to find yourself in these treacherous waters, the first creature you would likely encounter would be a shark. If you happened upon a shark like Tychidus, consider yourself lucky, and don't be intimidated by its size, which was comparable to a whale shark, 33 feet. This was one of the least aggressive sharks that resided in those waters. By studying the teeth of this creature, paleontologists concluded that Tychidus had quite a specific and somewhat peculiar diet. It had a large number of flat, sometimes convex, crushing teeth in its mouth. These teeth formed dental plates. The largest of these plates could be up to 21 inches long and up to 18 inches wide. The total number of teeth reached up to 550, with 220 on the lower jaw and 260 on the upper jaw. This indicates that Tychidus belonged to the Dirophagus group of sharks, meaning its diet consisted of creatures with shells, armor, or exoskeletons. The teeth varied in shape from trapezoidal and rectangular to rounded. The surface of the tooth crowns had small ridges that increased bite pressure, helping these sharks to grip the smooth shells of mollusks. These fish were extremely common, with up